Found a little two-person job here. These clamps are missing on our car and I didn't know what they look like. This one has them, which is great, but the way they're fixed is a bit annoying. One of us needs to put a socket on here to hold the nut, and one of us needs to put a screwdriver in each of these holes to hold the head of the machine screw that goes through into that nut. Now you can physically reach between here and the outside of the car, but as soon as the screwdriver slips off this end, it's a farce to get everything lined up. So Pat's going to do one end, I'll do the other, and then we can get these clamps off. That did not go according to plan. Unfortunately, as with many of the fixings on this car, the screw heads have gone very soft and rusty, and we could only get so far before the screwdriver was just chewing it up. And we're going to take an angle grinder to these fixings very carefully and do it that way instead. Speaking of, this is the last time we'll see this as a complete car, because today is angle grinder day. And we're going to start dismantling parts of this while we've got such lovely weather and saving what we can as we go. A lot of the front end, unfortunately, is completely rotten and not really salvageable. The wings are particularly bad. This is the good one, and yeah, you can see that it's leaving part of itself behind. It's quite bad down here, but what these wings will give me is some repair steel for doing any of the repairs left on ours, because there's still some good steel in here, there's some good shapes, and that's going to make my life a little bit easier. These headlights are proving difficult to get off because of the state of the threads on the bolts, so I'm going to cut around the headlight and just chop the wing off. If these wings were better condition, I'd do it a different way, but because they're so bad, I'm just going to cut around the headlights, and then the wings will mostly just pull off the car, literally. This side's even worse. You can see just how bad things have got in here, and repairs have been attempted, but yeah, it's not a happy place. And of course we have a little hole up here, and a little hole down there where the brace is. The braces look salvageable, so I might do that, when a lot of the rest of this is just toast. But with the wing off the car, removing the mirror and the side light, if they're salvageable at all, will be easier than trying to do it on the car like this. Getting the headlights off will be easier, I won't have the wing in the way of my head. Probably shan't get as far as the rear wings, they're a bit more involved to get off. I want to be a bit more careful because these wings aren't too bad. This one particularly is actually quite good down here, where it meets the sill, so I do want to try and save this one. It's not as badly dented and scraped up as ours either, so I think that one will save. The one on this side, we have a great big hole here in the leading edge of our wing, and this is surprisingly good. It's not perfect, there are some small holes there, and there may be some more as I clean it up, but that could be a really good repair section for ours. Or if this wing's better, it might be something I swap over in tax. We'll see. I'll know better when it's off the car, because the other ones for our car are off as well. Boot lid's pretty good. Frame's solid. Underneath the filler, because this is an aluminium skin, there's not really any rust, but there are these dents in it. So if you're a little bit skilled with your hammer and dollies, this is actually quite a presentable boot lid. And it's complete. We've got the lining for it, it's got the wiring still intact. Just need to unbolt the hinges. It's not any better than what's on our car, so we're not going to use this, but hopefully somebody else can. We will save all the doors, because they've still got loads of useful stuff on them, and it's easier to store all those loose bits as a complete door than it is as all loose bits in bags. The sills, though, I don't think there's anything to save here. That's aluminium and filler. There's not even much of a reference point, but I'll be able to see stuff like this better as we get the body panels off the car. The only other thing I want to do is I just want to document the wiring routes, so that's going to be a bit of a faff because of lighting, but we'll go through, we'll document that because it appears to have all of the wiring still in place and routed correctly, and that will be an excellent reference. I might even remove this wiring loom from the car whole so that we can see what one looks like and get some pictures of that, because that was something that was a struggle when I was trying to sort ours out. The bonnet is trash on this. Every time you open it, more rust falls out. It is falling apart. The grille's not great, the brightwork is tired, the side panels are rotten on the edges, but I have a plan for something I want to do with it. That gives me the cut line, and this is much more material than I need. And the reason I'm cutting there is you can see the panel line here. I want to save this panel. I'm not bothered about this panel, so that gives me my reference point. So I have a nice straight line across down to the other side, well, straight-ish, because this will need some fine tuning once it's off the car. So yeah, every time you open the bonnet, more rust falls out of it, and it gets worse the more times you do it. Part of the problem is that hinge there is snapped, but when you take a look up here, you can see all the various layers of the bonnet structure have just disintegrated. They're just cornflakes. It's restorable if you really want to, but honestly, I don't think in this case it's worth doing. I think this bonnet is too far gone, and it's much, much worse than ours. So it's better as donor material for a little project and for any sort of repairs we want to do. I've got a feeling I might use some of this bonnet skin where it's still good in the middle for another project, but we'll see how that pans out. Oh, it's time to start doing the chopping. It always feels a bit of a shame to chop something up, but needs must. I'll do this bit first. That's the front end chopped off. Went through that steel very, very easily, which was a bit surprising, but you can see here now just how bad this is. There's not really any saving that. But on the plus side, the little emblem there and the bonnet latch are still present, and it lines up still, obviously, quite well. And maybe you can see what I'm aiming to make here. Luckily, the bolts for the bonnet are still here, so I'll just undo what's left, so I don't have to go cutting through the hinges. You do it the sensible way. There we go. Right, since I've cut that edge, I'll put my gloves on before I move that. Same size bolts for the hinges, and again there's only 2 where there should be 4, and it's the same both sides. Now, although this one is broken, that one's still fine, and given what they're made of, I might actually be able to repair this one. I might be able to straighten out that snap piece and weld it back together. So these might be salvageable, and I can't imagine bonnet hinges are easy to get hold of. So I will go to the effort of just unbolting these. You get a slightly better look in the engine bay now that the bonnet's not in the way. And as we work through this, you'll see just how simple these cars really are, and how straightforward they are to put together and take apart, providing your fixings don't look like this. So I think a lot of these bits and pieces down here I'm probably going to have to do with the angle grinder, which it's not ideal, but needs must sometimes. Oh, that's quite loose. There's a bonus. That's the broken one off. That's the good hinge off. Now I want to take the grille off and these side panels, and some of the fixings are missing. Somebody's already been in and taken them, but some, this one here, are still present. But to be honest with you, they're not in good shape. I do not think these are going to unscrew at all, so I'm just going to angle grind through those. So there's 2 at the top which hold the engine side panel to the filling piece between the engine side panel and the grille, and then there's the grille anyway, 1 bracket there, which is another one I'm going to have to grind off, I think, which holds it to the radiator core support, and another 3 along the bottom edge, which again have just disintegrated, so that'll be grinder or flat wheel or similar to get those off. Once I've gone through those, what should come off in one piece is the grille and these side panels here, and you can see they're quite rotten on the bottom edge, so no use to us and nobody else is going to want them. And that should be able to take that middle piece out, and then I should be able to deal with the wings a bit easier. Found another bolt I need to remove, which is that one there, and that goes through from the outer wing, sandwiches the fillet piece through the splash guard, and then bolts the whole lot together there. So I almost missed that one. This side is proving a little bit more tricky because I'm fighting the rotation of the grinder and I'm trying to do it safely. Access isn't the best, but we'll get there. Right, underneath the front of the car here, and there is another bolt here that needs to come out. Now what I did with the upper one of these on one side was cut through the bracket that comes off the radiator core support, because I couldn't get in and do it another way, and the core support's pretty trashed. Underneath there's 3 bolts, one here, and one here, and I can see the remains of a wire clip there, so that tells me where the wiring harness is supposed to run underneath the front of the car, I think, because up until now I didn't actually know. So I know we'll need some P-clips on our car to secure the wiring harness there. So that's worth knowing. Just figuring out the best course of attack here to get this out without hurting myself or wasting time. But we're nearly ready to get the face off. What have I missed? Aha! There we go. Can you see that nubbin up there? That's the remains of a bolt I need to remove. That's all that's holding this in now. I know the bolt I'm trying to find is around about here, so I've scraped all the moss out, and when you pry on the panel you can sort of see just here how it pulls, and that shows you that the bolt is in this sort of area. So we'll drop the angle grinder in there, cut through it. These fixings aren't worth saving, they are too far gone, and that should free up this piece. So much for the theory. I managed basically to miss the bolt, which is just in this gap here, and have instead cut through the flimsy wing. But it's done the job, so we shall see if I can pull this off now. Right. New problem. I forgot to remove these bolts, which aren't actually bolted in, they're just stuck in there because everything's catching on this bracket here, and that's stopping me sliding everything past the radiator support. So let's get these out of here, like so. This one's going to fight me a bit more, and we'll try again. And it's off. And I did want this in one big piece like this, because that's going to make my life easier in the future. Now you can see what I'm trying to build and why I cut it where I did. This is too big, it's too deep front to back, so I still have some more work to do here and some framing and cleaning, but that's quite promising. I've got all the pieces to make it a nice smooth end product when it's done. Looking at the order of operations for dismantling, I've got one bolt left here, the others are gone, and there's either a screw up here which is quite stuck, or a nut and bolt there through the bracket which I might be able to get going. On the other side we've still got all three of the top rail bolts, and they will hold this to this, and I think the outer wing sandwiched between that as well. I think. Yeah, so I'm going to have to do some unbolting before I can take the wings off. But you can see on, this one's really bad, and you can see on this one just why I'm not saving them. They are too far gone. And they've gone in really strange places. It's going to be easiest to cut through all of this. The other thing I'm a bit concerned about is the core support which bolts onto the chassis. So you've got your core support here for the radiator, and then that bolts in down here. This little crusty bit here is the bottom of the support for both the radiator core and the wing support and the headlights, and this goes through a bushing and bolts into the chassis. It's quite loose this side, so I think the bolt's probably rotted out. This side isn't much better, to be honest with you. It's very, very crusty, packed with mud. So I'm not entirely sure how I'm taking this front end apart now. I'm going to have to, I think, experiment and think a bit off camera and bring you back when I've figured it out. It's nice to have a garage to keep a car in, somewhere to put your tools, especially the boot of the car that you can't get out the garage, where you've put all of your Imperial spanners. Well done me. So I've had to improvise. For these fixings in here, you cannot get a socket on them, let alone a socket with the ratchet. You can't get a ratcheting spanner on there. You have to do it the old-fashioned way. And they work out, I'm not sure what size they're supposed to be, but they work out at 11mm. I don't have an 11mm spanner. I've got 12s and 14s, but I do have a bicycle spanner. And one of these nubbins is 11mm. So that got me the bolt out. This screw in here, which screws into the bracket, I've been soaking that for a couple of days with penetrating fluid, and that came out. So now, in theory, all that's holding this in are a couple of locking buttons down here, and it should just lift and pull out. That will then give me access to the outer wing and the inner wing, and we should be able to see what comes apart next. Easy peasy. On the bottom of the wing here there's a bracket with a slot in it, and obviously this is full of rubbish. This panel's not actually that bad. I think this will go again. It's got a little bit just on this very corner here that needs a repair, but other than that, I think that's serviceable. And the bit that locks into, I thought there was two, there's actually only one, is this little button here, which is part of the bodywork there. And then this little bracket up here is what the it's what the engine side panel screws to. So I'll see if I can salvage this and attach that to the side panel. But yeah, all the mud that's collected has caused quite a bit of work in there, and this wing is just, it's gone, you know. Now the interesting thing is I was told there was no piping in here, but there is some sort of fabric barrier. So I'm guessing when I put ours back together, I need to find out what this stuff is, because it looks like Rexine without the piping cord in it, and I'll have to replace that. But I think that means the wing the outer wing might be free of the body. I'll have a check round, and if it is, I can just cut out round the headlight and I can get this wing off. But we shall see. It's nice that that's salvageable at least. I've got a couple of options with this. I've just swept everything clean so I can see what I'm dealing with. I can either try and undo these bolts from inside the wheel arch, or because of how rotten this wing is, I can just cut along this edge here and go around the headlight as I was planning to, and just take the whole wing off. I can then unbolt this separately afterwards. Might have to do this side properly because this outer wing looks slightly better, but we'll see when I have this panel off on this side. Yeah, I think the grinder is going to be the sensible option here. Well, that wasn't too bad. It is a shame to cut up a panel, but needs must, and the amount of work that it needed was too much. Yeah, let me show you what we've found behind here and why it would have been basically impossible to take it off the normal way. First of all, here's the wing that has come off the car, and the lip should be this sort of depth all the way along, and obviously a lot of it is just, it's not even there anymore. The metal's very thin, and obviously this is where I've cut through for the headlight, because the headlight actually bolts through the wing, so you've got to get the headlight off to get the wing off normally. The mounting point for the stay, this is to stop your wings flapping about, is just barely hanging on there, and the trailing edge here is just completely trashed. So this wing needs many hours of work putting into it even before I cut it off the car. It's scrap. On the car you can see the rusty remains of the return lip there. There's not much left, and you can see these bolts that we would have had to get to separate the outer wing from the inner splash guard. The inner splash guard itself looks to be okay. There's 2 bolts that hold it on this side, and there's 4 that hold it on this side. And once I trim or unbolt, depending how it lets me do it, this out, I can then lift the splash guard out, and I can trim these bits of rust and bolts and whatever off at my leisure easier. The problem though is this structure here, and this is all hidden by the wing. I know this area is good on our car, at least I think it's good on our car, but on this one that's about as bad as it can get while it's still actually present. And that's just from all that muck just gathering and rotting and never being cleared out of that area. So I don't feel too bad that we're doing this. Yeah, this car is really far gone. There are amusing little details like the captive nut here, which is just held on here, but everything that goes around it is just gone. It's just sort of floating. Unbelievably, every single one of these bolts came undone. They needed a little tiny squirt of penetrating fluid, and that was it. I did not expect that. Although, I will say, they probably wouldn't have been as easy with the wing and everything in place, because I've got a lot more space to put force in. There we go. Now you can get a slightly better look at what goes on with the chassis and the wiring and stuff in this area, and it's all kind of grim. I think I'm actually going to have to get the power washer in here just to see what I'm doing before I do anything. Now that's interesting. I don't know if that plate's present on our car, but that's the chassis plate for the car, which I didn't know was on there. It could be on ours, I just haven't seen it, but yeah, the 2 ID plates there are present on the chassis. That's a good thing to have if we're trying to get it back on the road. Well, I mean, we're not with this one. This one's too far gone, but you never know. Somebody else might want it. I think I'm ready for some lunch. But first, this is the splash panel that came off the car, and it's in pretty good shape. It's a bit surface rusty, but there's no rot through on it. I think this will clean up and paint actually quite well, and it's certainly at least as good as what's on our car, less the paint. So I'm happy to have that piece. Yeah, you can see the iron. This is what supports the wing, and this is where it bolts onto the wing. I didn't bother unbolting this because of course this is all rotted out, so there wasn't much point, but You can see now that we've got the wing off, I can tin snip through that and I can get that cleared out the way, but I should also be able to get to the fixings for the headlight bowl a little bit easier